This meeting is being live streamed. Got it. Okay. Let's see how we look on this. Oh, we are side by side.
Awesome. Perfect.
Okay.
I'm showing we are live on YouTube.
Okay. Hi, YouTube. Oh, goodness. Okay. Wow. All right. So we did it. We made it. We made it onto YouTube.
We're here live on YouTube.
Yeah.
Technology. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
But have you ever noticed the first time you use technology, you're kind of like, oh, is this, oh, you just get all nervous. Like, oh, am I doing it right?
I know. And what's so crazy is it really is, this is no different than like going live from Zoom on Facebook or something, right? But it's our first time on YouTube. And I have to say that it was very easy. It was easier than any other platform I've ever gone live on. So good.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool. Okay.
Yeah. So let's dive in, Shane, because some people might be wondering, why are you on YouTube? Good question. So,
there is a reason.
There is a reason. And I have to say a lot of it is because Shane and I really love real live feedback. Which is why we decided to bring our podcast to video. So we're really, really excited and not quite sure what's going to happen next.
But we're here for it. We're going to give it a go. And I do think the reason that we are here is because we do love the personal interaction. So this live platform gives us the chance here through YouTube, gives us a chance to have much more interaction with the audience than what we could get on a traditional audio podcast only. So I know you're excited. I'm excited. I know that this has been a long time in the making, even.
Yes.
To get to this point. So
it has been. And Shane, when we last spoke about the idea of development, we were meeting with Anu Gray Sapra on episode 7. So on the don'tbefooled.podcast.com, if you wanted to hear Anu Gray's interaction with us in a live consulting call, is really, really exciting. I love those personal exchanges. Don't you?
I do.
Love them.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah, it is a big deal. But the reason why we are focusing on this is because over the course of over 2 decades now, I have found that there really are only 2 things that matter in business, right? And everything comes down to these 2 things: always acquiring new clients and always helping those clients get what they want. So there's a process and a measurement, and there are strategies and tools that really have higher conversions, that drive higher value than others. And so we talk about that on these live consulting calls, which you'll hear over our time together here on YouTube. And we'll have some of those people just in here with us because we love that exchange. But Shane and I are always on those calls together. And so when we, one of the things that we have found benefits the clients that we're talking to is helping them focus on, okay, if I'm always going to be achieving those 2 priorities, then what do I do every day? How many times do we hear that question? I just don't know what to do.
Yes, frequently.
Yes.
And here's the thing. What you figured out, Amy, is it's a lot less than what you think. When you are strategic and targeted, you have what all of us in ownership want, which is freedom of time. Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
We do. We get that question a lot. What do I work on?
Yes. What do I work on? What do I do? I feel like I sit down every day at the desk or the computer and I walk away and I don't really have anything to show for it. And most owners left some corporate job or decided not to go that route because they didn't want to be chained to a desk from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. under somebody else's rule and thumb, right?
Yep.
And so they jumped to have this creative, flexible experience and make money and be able to do what they want, when they want, how they want, with whom they want.
Yep.
But the reality is most of them are working from 7 or 8 in the morning until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. They're missing major milestones with children. They are, they're running around chasing their tails all day, and they're up and down and up and down and up and down. There just isn't a lot of focus. So there's very few things to measure in the outcomes. And I know that you and I have figured this out from our own stinking failures. I mean, that's just the truth.
I'm thinking back to the nights where I would stay up till 11 o'clock at night and then get right back up at 7 in the morning. And a lot of my time was spent on activity, right? Just lots of activity. I just tried, okay, what else could I try? What else could I try? And what was missing though was productivity. Like I didn't have any productivity. I wasn't making the impact I wanted to make. I certainly wasn't doing what you said, which are the two most important things: getting new clients and getting them what they wanted. I was really confused and really disappointed. I think that's the word. I was just disappointed. Like, sure, I did not leave for this,
Well, and I'm telling you what, there's nothing more disappointing than when you're working like that for a few years in a row and you still have to close the business, because that's what happened to me. I mean, that's just the truth. I was grinding and I was hustling, and I don't want this to be confused with, we're not going to tell you, here's a 1-hour work week. Like, you have to work.
You got to work.
And business is a long game, but how you work matters. When you work matters. What you do when you work, it matters. It matters a lot. It matters a lot to every outcome you want, to how long you're around, to how many lives you can impact. And so we really focus down with the clients on only 4 things. These are the 4 things that I have found after measuring and deliberately executing and lots of failure. There's only 4 things that matter. And so we started talking about these 4 things with number 1, which is called positioning, which is not to be confused with marketing or advertising, with Anu Gray. Now, positioning and advertising are an indirect outcome from positioning, but that's not what we were focused on. So we had that call with Anu Gray. I would encourage you to go to don'tbefooledpodcast.com, go to episode 7, hear our conversation. He's a brilliant guy. But the second thing that we talk about is development. Now, today, the one thing I wanted to touch on first was content development. So when we're talking about always acquiring the same client, Shane, we have to always be getting their attention. So content development is not like this guy, like Copywriting Secrets. Okay. Great book. Good book. But I can tell you, I've only focused on pages 42 through 45, the headline section. That formula has helped me. And so I would encourage you, go get this book and focus on the parts that are going to help you. But there is no step-by-step, do this, don't do that. But there's really good ideas here. There's really good ideas. The ideas in here have helped me take my step-by-step and dial it in. So I'm really grateful for this Jim Edwards guy that is really cool. Go follow him on Facebook. He does a lot of really cool videos. A lot of times he's like walking around his farm. Have you ever seen him?
Cool. I have. It's so cool. I'm like, I want a farm like Jim.
And he's got like this beard.
Yes.
Okay, so let me tell you the truth. Okay, so we homeschool. We are a homeschool family out of desire. I know, call me crazy, but I love playing with my kids while they are learning. It is a really cool, and I don't like to play with my kids on a playground or in the sand or
anything dirty.
Play-Doh or clay, but I like to play with them while we're learning. So Jim Edwards has this beard. Now he has this beard. I don't see one in this picture, but so he has this beard. And we are learning about the entire major events throughout history, starting at the very beginning of time, Shane. So the very first thing is that age of ancient empires So Age has this long beard. So this is what came to my mind was Age of Ancient Empires, Jim Edwards, Copywriting Secrets. Go get your book today while you are fluffing your beard and walking around on your own farm because he is a cool guy.
He is cool. He is cool.
And if I could grow out a beard, I probably would. I can see why guys go there. Okay, this is not.
I'm just trying to imagine. You would definitely walk around doing that. You do this all the time.
Yes, I would. I'm like, why can you grow one out and I can't? Why can you go bald and I can't? Okay, this is a whole nother conversation that you and I are going to have.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I caught that reference about going bald. I hear you. I'm with you.
But you're not bald yet. You're not bald yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
That's right. That's right.
But the reality is that there's a lot of good tools out there. But to get the proximity that helps us execute the tools is not available in this book. You can't even get it through his videos, right? Like you've got to get in his space and really understand how everything interconnects, right? Yeah. And so the thing that we want to talk about today is specifically around content development and why your content is not converting. I mean, the reality is that there are some very real reasons why content doesn't convert. And one of the big ones, Shane, that we hear a lot is I need a content writer.
Yes. Yeah.
Man, I believed the same thing. Didn't you?
Yeah. I would look around and say, okay, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. Surely there must be somebody else out there who could do it better than I could. I'll go find them and pay them to do it. Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's easy. One of the things that we are told, especially in corporate environments, and most owners come from some sort of job environment, you know, as a whole, not everyone, but there's a larger percentage that come from some organized employment than just coming straight out of college. And even if you come out of college or you come out of any sort of traditional organized education, this thought is ingrained in you. Yeah. That you have, if you're not good at it, go find someone that is.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that that's not a good idea, but as an owner, when it comes to content, there are some reasons that you don't outsource this too soon or ever. Or ever.
Yep.
So I want to just very quickly with you, Shane, go through 4 things that we have found that will, that if owners and leaders will avoid these things when it comes to content development, their content will start to convert. But I have to say that I am deeply inspired by a guy that we both know. And he is referred to as the Apostle Paul, right? So he was the leader of arguably the largest movement on planet Earth. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. And definitely not the largest, but also the longest movement in all of human history. Yeah. Yeah,
you're right. And what's really interesting about Paul is that he was a serial entrepreneur and never gave it up. Like, so he's leading this thing, helping all of these people, but he is still a serial entrepreneur. So why? Because he loved having some freedom and flexibility to go where he wanted to go, help who he wanted to help. It was his money that funded a large part of this movement from the very early age, from the very early stage. And what's really interesting is that he had learned this trade as a young boy from his father. So they were tent makers, but in those days, tents were primarily made for soldiers, for the military. And also what most people don't know is in these different parts of the world, typically, like there was only one tent maker. Like there wasn't like 50 on Amazon.
I'm thinking, you find your thing and you're kind of like, that's your thing and nobody else gets to pick it type of deal.
Exactly. Right? Yes. And
there's one blacksmith in the West, right? Like, that is the blacksmith. That's the the doctor, the teacher.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. And they get all the business, right?
Mhm.
So there was one tent maker, well known. So guess where all the military came for their tents?
Yeah. Coming to Paul.
Coming to the Apostle Paul.
Mhm.
Now, what is really, really cool about him is he's actually written about, and then he's done a lot of writing. So when we talk about content, this is a guy that I study very closely because his peers talk about him like this. It's actually documented in a book called First Peter. So in First Peter, it's documented that Paul wrote the same thing over and over. This is how they described him to the people that were reading his writings, right? So if we had to glean anything new about content development, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Because you're going to find over the course of the Don't Be Fooled journey that we are going to debunk all these ideas that there's something new.
Yep.
But there ain't.
There's not.
Okay.
There's not.
There is nothing new. Nobody has some secret that you don't know about. There are new ways of organizing old ideas.
Mhm.
There's new information to these older ideas that we execute in a new way. But the reality is that we have real proof to follow. And
Yes. Someone told me one time, Amy, it's like principles are always true. They go across all kingdoms. They go across all cultures. They go across all industries. Principles are, by definition, principle because of that. So principles never change. Now, the technique and the application of those principles, absolutely, those are changing, and they're adapting to whatever the context is that we're speaking of. But the principle is always the principle. So why not go to the root and work forward versus, hanging out here on the edges and trying to figure out how does all this connect? I love that phrase you used earlier. You said, all of this is interconnected. It's like, okay, well, what drives that common ground? It's these principles that go all the way back to the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because there's a lot of conversation, especially recently, because there was a book that came out and I can't remember the name of the book. You and I got it, but we'll talk about that another time, where the guy talks about how he brings out the fact that some of the best brands on the planet reverse engineer things. Well, if I'm going to reverse engineer something, I'm going to reverse engineer the best of the best. This guy contributed to the longest standing #1 bestseller of all time. I want to know about his content.
Yes.
I want to know about his content creation. And here's one of the very first things that I learned is that in order for our content to convert, we have to remain appropriate to the current period of time. So this guy remained current to his period of time. If you go back and read his writings, they are current to his people, to his culture, to what's going on there, but specifically to his audience. And he relied on proof. So our culture today, just imagine every day there is 60,000 pieces of content coming at us through video, through scrolling, through ads, through, all of the media, YouTube. We're a part of that 60,000 pieces of content. So we've got all this content coming at us, and the culture is saying, where is the proof? Where is the real stuff? Like, where are the people that have been saying the same thing over and over and over again? And I can see that what they're saying is happening. Yes. This was one big lesson I saw from Paul Shane, was that he had proof that there was a truth. This truth had changed him. This truth had changed thousands of people in front of him. So he's going to write about how you can be changed through this truth as well. And here is how he was documented. He wrote the same thing over and over, but the documentation goes on to say, but because what he was writing was complex or complicated, people didn't want to take the time to understand it. Okay. What culture does that sound like?
A lot like the culture where there's 60,000 pieces of content coming your way every day.
At you. Exactly. So it's easier to think, well, you're too complicated, so I'm going to go over here and find somebody that's saying it in a way that I like.
Yes.
So,
That's
and
right.
then I'm going to just regurgitate the like way, but not the truth way. Right.
Mhm.
So there is a behavior of people that are learners, that are lifelong learners, is they don't just listen to tell someone what they've heard. They listen to learn.
Yeah.
And so that's what this writer is saying about the audience of Paul, is that some of you don't want to take the time to learn. So you're taking it and you're distorting it. You're twisting it so that it fits what you want it to say. So you can tell people and you can sound awesome, but you really don't have what we have found to be tacit knowledge, which is where people have experienced the learning, they've taken in the understanding, they've experienced the learning, and now they're telling other people about it. Good content has tacit knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's not regurgitated procedural blog posts.
Yep.
Right?
It really is not.
Sense?
It's knowledge that's coming from your own personal experience. Paul's writing is born out of his own personal experience. He's not talking about someone else's experience and trying to relay what it must have been like for them and what they must have done and how they must have overcome. No, he's telling you his own story through his writing. What's so interesting to me is this question that you posed a minute ago. You know, the idea that Paul was known by his peers struck me. Paul was known by his peers. It's like, okay, so who are you known by? That's the first question. You're like, okay, me as a content creator, who am I known by? Is it the group of people that I'm wanting to connect with? The second question is, how am I known? What would those people say about me based on the content that they are receiving from me? Would they say that I say the same thing over and over again? Or would they say, boy, this guy's just so fragmented, because this is who I was. This guy's so fragmented. He talks about all this weird stuff. Like, you don't know who he is because he's always talking about these things that are not connected, that don't resonate, that don't really matter. That's very different, though, than consistently connecting with a group of people. And when you have a complex message, continuing to reframe that in new ways, almost like a diamond, right? You know, so when you look at a diamond from one angle, you see an element of beauty in it. But when you shift it just ever so slightly and the light hits it in a new way, there's a whole nother level of beauty that opens up. And that's what we're talking about. It's just angling this diamond in new ways over and over again so that people can see and connect based on their context with what we are wanting to engage them with. I hope that makes sense. It's not too out there, but that's what hit me. It's like, okay, how am I known? What is my content saying about me, who I am in relationship to the problem I'm wanting to help people solve? And am I turning that diamond where they can see it in more revealing ways? Yeah.
Well, I think that this brings up a good point, that in order for us to write good content, we have to be doing what we're writing about. We have to be people that when someone sees us, they're like, hey, you're like me. You sound like me. You think like me. And there is nothing wrong with that. That's how businesses are grown. This is when people are attracted to the brand because it feels familiar to them. There has to be a level of familiarity. If you're too like behind the curtain, like Oz, and you're trying to just woosa your way into solving a problem for somebody, but they don't know how you've solved it for yourself first. You know, everybody wants case studies, but where is your case study?
Yes.
Right?
In your
Where
life.
is your case
in your
study?
life.
Yes. In your life. And this is really the second thing, Shane, that people need in order to write content and to produce content that is always converting. So we're always acquiring that ideal client. The only other thing that is more important than always acquiring the client that we serve the best is helping that client get what they want. That's it. Those are only two things that matter. So when we're talking about getting the attention of the people who we want to serve, we've got to make sure those people are at the center. So the second reason, number two, how we're going to write content that converts is we're going to solve people's problems. We're going to serve them until their need is fulfilled, right? So it's really interesting to me because I know when I first started in business, I started with this idea that if it, and I don't mean to say it this way, but this is a very simplistic way of saying it. If I build it, they will come. So if I have this cool logo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool name, right location. My very first, business involved a brick and mortar.
Yep.
And if I had all the stuff that makes me look like someone that you want to do business with, you're going to come in. It's going to happen.
Yep.
Well, that is not what happened. And so then I was like, well, now I need to hire someone to go make this happen. Still didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I found at the end of a very long 3-year stretch where I had to close that business and start completely over with everything, was I had made myself the center. So when I started the business, it was for me. Mm-hmm. Amy had this vision of making a lot of money fast and then selling that business. And like, I don't know what I was going to do with my days. I don't know what else was in my imagination, but there was something else about me. Okay. It was only me and my imagination. Yep. That is your first clue. If you're starting a business and the only thing in your imagination is you and maybe a few other folks,
that's an indicator.
Don't be fooled, people. That is a problem. I had somebody, I was in a class and I had somebody draw this bullseye thing and they put a thing in the center. And I was like, yes, they're about to say that in the center is my client, but they said me. And I was like, no, you will lose everything. I did that. Yes. And so the reality is that in order for us to write content that converts, we have to always be thinking about the person reading it. They have to be at the very center of our attention, right? They have to be the ones we're writing for, we're solving for, we're working for. It is about helping other people get what they want first. So we have to move away from this idea of asking or of begging to asking. Mm-hmm. So, one thing that you and I have observed is agile leaders know something that other leaders do not know. Agile is not something that you do, it's something you become. Mm-hmm. And there is a formula to being agile. And when you are agile, your content naturally converts. And here is why. Because the formula looks like this: ask, seek, knock. Not seek, knock, ask. Okay.
Say those again. Those are good.
Yeah. And I'm going to unpack it, Shane.
Ask, seek, knock. That's agile.
That's agile.
Okay.
Then my scavenger leaders, those people that have me in the center. And in their imagination, it's them and a few people on a beach, on a yacht in 5 years. Those people, which there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to shame anyone, but if I'm telling you, if in your mind's eye, all you see is yourself and a few people, this is your clue that you could be on the decline and you don't know it yet, financially and resourcefully with your time, really. So the scavenger leader says, I'm going to seek, I'm going to knock, and then I'm going to ask. So in this very archaic turn of the age principle, the writer talks about that you first go ask, then you seek, then you knock, and all of this is going to be open to you. Okay. But most people, think about it. If you want something from someone, you start looking for it and you go, I cannot find my phone. Then you start knocking. Who has seen my phone? Where is my phone? Do you have my phone? Where is my phone? You start to get there is an agitation. Yes. There is a desperation. Your body starts to react to this kind of anxiety. And then you start asking, well, if I don't find my phone, can you buy me another phone? I mean, how am I going to get another phone? Or where is it going to come from? Or it might look like this. We're running out of money. We're in September. We haven't met our numbers for the year. So it looks like this. We have to create something new. We've had this thing. It hasn't been converting, or that we know of, because we don't measure it.
We don't know.
So we don't know if it's converting or not. So let's just add on this product. Hey, let's add a mouse to the situation, right? Let's create a new offer. And then let's just launch a campaign and start asking people to buy our stuff. Right. So we seek, where's the money? It's not here. Let's start knocking. Knock, 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 knock. Buy our stuff, buy our stuff, buy our stuff. Please buy our stuff. Will you buy our stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't work that way. The ask, seek, knock method is completely out of the norm because it puts the user, the end user, at the center. So what we do in an agile business process, you're an agile coach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a consultant that built an agile business system. Together, we help the clients become agile so then they can execute agile systems.
Yeah.
Very important. And the first thing we teach them is you have to go to the consumer and ask them some things, and not about their demographics, but you've got to start to become obsessed with their aspirations, their personality, their frustrations, even their attitudes. Hey, even their belief systems. You have to start to become obsessed with that. That's what the business world calls psychographics. Okay.
Cool kid term. Cool kid term.
Okay. We just say, here's these 6 questions. Go ask. Okay. Then we pull in the data. And for some clients, this is in 3 days. We pull in this data and now we start to seek the data for the answers. What's emerging that's repetitive? What are they saying as a collective group? So our target market does not involve demographics.
Nope.
Our target market is much deeper than that. And it is all about these psychographics, or who is this person really? Not at the low hanging fruit, but who are they really? Then we start to write to them things like, hey, I see you. I know you. I was like you. I did the same thing you're doing. This is what happened. I stopped doing that. And now this happened. Then they convert because now there's trust. Oh, you're like me. You failed. You did the same thing I did. You're like me. Okay. I understand you because you're like me.
Right.
Because we come from a lot of the same belief systems. We have a lot of the same attitudes towards things. Our aspirations are the same, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's a very powerful process. For me, it's my favorite process.
And it's, when I first went through this journey of discovering the psychographics of a group of people who had a problem that I could help them solve, my biggest fear was missing out. Like it really was. I was like, I'm going to miss out. I'm going to miss out on opportunity. If I get that focused on who it is that I'm wanting to help, then, I'm eliminating 2/3 of the world's population. Little did I know that by scaling down and asking these very targeted questions, I opened up the whole world of possibilities for people to read. It actually, when you scale down your focus, you increase your opportunity, not the opposite. Again, that's a principle that is being lived out. There are people who I would be missing out on helping solve a problem if I started with saying, well, I only work with this demographic of people, this age, this gender, this money, blah, 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 blah. I'd be missing out on a world of opportunity that this problem goes across all of those demographics, right? Like, so rather than saying, I've got to narrow down my focus, like, no. What we're saying is when you shrink your seeking, you expand your potential for impact, but you got to get really targeted and focused, because if not, what you end up doing is you try to speak to all these different voices out there that are living in your head, because you're not asking what they're really thinking. You start speaking to all these different voices and you're not known by anyone, or you're not known for anything. And that's not attractional.
Well, and Shane, when I met you, you had been at this process for 8 months, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you were doing a lot of stuff. You were doing a lot of seeking, knocking, asking, all over the place, right?
Yes.
And you were getting drips and drabs of stuff. You were getting a little here, a little there. But you think that this process of ask, seek, knock is going to make the outcome slower.
Yeah.
But I observed that you got massive results fast, like within 2 weeks of doing the research, man.
Yes.
We were at $1,000 to, what was it? $17,000.
Yes. In 30 days, First 7,000 was in 2 weeks. And then the next 8,000, bam.
And I had the same experience. I went from closing a business to starting another one and going quickly to 300,000 in 9 months.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that in 3 years at the other business.
Right.
So it is an amazing acceleration. It feels like you're missing out. It feels like you're letting go. But the reality is you are going deeper, and deeper never loses. It never loses. And this is the third reason why we do not need content writers to convert our stuff for us, is because we need the personal discipline of staying in the ask, seek, knock process, the research that an agile leader is always in. They are always asking, then seeking, then knocking. And it creates this personal discipline of, actually, all this other stuff doesn't matter. There really are only two objectives to every business. And I now know that from staying in the personal discipline of ask, seek, knock versus seek, knock, ask, right? It's a completely different mindset even. Don't you agree?
I agree. It's part of what I was hanging on to was the false belief that by doing more, I would get more. Like that was a false belief. Doing more doesn't get you more. Doing less actually does get you more. And that's what we're saying. When we focus in, when we go away from a shotgun approach and we get much more targeted and rifled in our approach, boy, that less opens up into more in its outcomes. But that is a hard thing. And this is the part about, from an agile leadership standpoint, you can have a system that says, okay, stop doing this, start doing this. You've got to give up some things in order to start doing something new. Like, you got to get really comfortable with saying, you know what, I'm gonna sacrifice the feeling of comfort that is false, because I felt comfortable doing what I was doing and I wasn't making any money. So I had to give up this false sense of security and feeling comfortable with the ways that I was. I had to give that up and say, I'm gonna fully commit to a new way, and then go after it. And trust that you got somebody who's giving you advice, who's been there, who has turned business around, who has gotten the results that I wanted, right? So I would just say, as we're talking about this idea of content and mastery, be careful who you choose to follow. Be very careful who you choose to follow. Follow people who have gotten the outcome that you want, and they can tell you how they got there, along with the pitfalls of making that journey that proved out their process over time. Yeah. Makes sense?
So good. So good. Yeah. I mean, all of it, you have to be careful about who you're following, because, there is a reason that Jeff Bezos, who has the most valuable platform on the planet, not the most popular. Right. Facebook is the most popular. Amazon is the most valuable. I don't know about you, but I want to be valuable to people. I don't really care about being known and being popular. I really don't.
Right on.
And so the reality is that he still is one of the guys that circulates through the customer service department and listens. Why? Because he's obsessed with getting that service, that solution delivered right. And the only way to know is to talk to the people. He's also obsessed with how they are positioning themselves in the marketplace. And the only way to know that is, where are people putting value? You got to talk to them.
Yeah, you got to talk to them.
And so the very last thing that comes after personal discipline is personal touch that moves people from prospects to friends of your brand. This is what you want. You want people that are like, man, I'm in this with you. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to listen to you, because I know that you really care. Yeah, you're really like me. I'm at the center of your work, and you are constantly obsessing about how you can help me over and over and over again. And people see that when they're able to journey with you in a certain way. I mean, make sure you have customer service. Make sure that you're responding quickly to requests and to communication. And even the people that are commenting negatively to your post, respond to them. Don't ignore it. Respond to them. You don't need to get into an argument with them, but respond to them. If you believe in what you are writing and you want content that's going to convert, be convicted by it.
Yeah, good
Stand
word.
on it. Stand on it, right? I mean, Paul wrote the same thing over and over. People that didn't understand it pulled it apart and either judged it or tried to dumb it down, and he never jumped off message. And the reality is that if we are going to have content that converts, we don't need a content writer. We need conviction as owners in what we do for people, how we do it, and that, gosh darn it, we're the only people that can do it that well.
Yes.
And that's what we need. And I think too, that there's this idea, especially in the digital marketing space, that we need oodles and oodles of content. You know what actually scales? And I know this from getting a 300 to 500% return on investment from paid digital ads that I don't have a digital advertiser for, and I'm not a digital advertiser. 5 ads dwindled down to 1. That's what scales. You don't need oodles of content. You need oodles of content that you're convicted about.
Yeah, it's good.
And then you need to talk about it over and over and over again from every angle that you know it experientially. There has to be this intellectual experience that you can speak from with conviction and with passion, that people can be like, man, okay, I need to do that, or I need to talk to that person. They're like me. And that's what it all comes down to, is content that converts. At the very core of it is the audience that you're convicted about serving, not yourself and not a dollar sign.
Yeah.
And that's how it goes.
I'm just sitting here thinking, boy, try outsourcing the level of conviction that you just saw demonstrated in Amy's 2 minutes of conversation there. You can't outsource that conviction. That's not possible. Now, there are ways over time that you can share that conviction, but no one will have that level of conviction that the owner has. No one ever. And staying in that, staying connected to the people, staying connected to their problem, staying connected to whether or not you're actually delivering a solution that they find valuable is the owner's responsibility. How you do it is going to change over time as your business grows. But you can grow a significant business without ever having to have a full-time employee.
Yes. Or a full-time content writer.
Or a full-time content writer. You don't have to have that, because this is not as difficult as you hear other people make it sound. Right? It's not as difficult. It really is focusing on a very few things and doing them exceptionally well and doing them consistently. And that's where that discipline comes back in.
Yeah.
So it does start with conviction, though. You have to be convicted about the people, the problem, and the solution. And you got to believe in yourself to deliver that outcome. Absent of that, your copy will be flaky. It won't connect because you'll be making stuff up. You'll be hoping you're guessing right.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what, Shane, I just have to say this because I know that there's going to be content writers that watch this, and I'm not saying don't ever hire a content writer. I'm saying there is a place in the chain that a content writer really, really is the most valuable, and where they get the most value. Look, I mean, who wants to write for somebody that doesn't know what they want written? Yes. Nobody. That's setting that content writer up for failure. Exactly. Like if you want a content writer that can help you take what you've proven to the next level, then give them something to duplicate. You know, if you don't have anything to duplicate, it's not time for a content writer. You need some proof. But I also have to just end with this. If you've got copy that doesn't convert, I don't care if you're doing live videos. I don't care if you have a podcast, which we are going to talk all about why podcasts do not convert and make money. We're going to talk about it. And one day we're going to do it. So if you've got any kind of body of content, books, posts, ads, video, audio that's not converting, I'm going to tell you right now, it is because somewhere in the process you lacked the diligence to go and learn what needed to be learned so that you could make decisions that you could stand by till the end of time.
Mm-hmm.
And until you go back and do that diligent work, which feels like that slowdown, until you stop being a scavenger owner that is seeking and knocking and asking, and go to the owner that is asking, seeking, and knocking, you're never going to have copy that converts. It doesn't matter who you hire. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
And so, and I know this from personal experience, I never thought I could write anything. So I just jumped out of the gate and hired somebody and said, here's some ideas. Not one body of their content ever converted, even when I paid for it. And like when I paid like a Facebook to send it out, never converted. It was my content from my experience using keywords that my audience resonated with. That's what converted. And so I really hope that this conversation begins to help you unpack, okay, I need to focus down on one or two of these areas. And listen, we've actually taken the four most important things and dropped them into a document for you. And we'll put that link into the comment section of this video. But we'd love to hear from you. What was one thing that you heard that really got your attention, and why? Tell us about it. Write it out. Let's have a conversation. And if you want to dive deeper and have a deeper conversation, let me know. I'll hop on the phone. I'll help you execute these steps in a more practical way if that's what you need. So I hope that you found great value, Shane. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Always.
We're going to do it again. This was fun.
Yeah, it was. All right. We'll do it next time.
Okay. All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.